Good, uh, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Clay's Council. I'm your host, Clay D here, and I am joined here by the wonderful and talented marketing extraordinaire, Miss Amy Scott. Miss Amy, thank you for joining us here this morning.
Thank you so much, Clay. I really appreciate your opening your community to me, and I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite topics.
Absolutely. And we have a captivating lineup of topics to delve into, ranging from the latest marketing trends shaping the industry to insightful strategies for staying ahead of the curve. So, therefore, I'm thrilled to be here moderating this discussion. I'm confident that your esteemed presence will provide valuable insights that would inspire and inform our audience. So, my first question for you, Miss Amy, is your career journey includes extensive experience in leadership development, business coaching, and executive coaching. What initially drew you to this field, and how has your journey evolved over the years?
Thanks for asking. It's really interesting. I graduated with a business degree, and at the time, I thought sales was what you went into when you were in business. And so I wound up going across the country and interviewing for a few jobs. And actually, they called me and said, "We didn't tell anybody this, but we had a marketing job that's available. We think you'd be great for it." And I had really, other than my business school classes, no idea what marketing was at the time. But I did know that getting a product manager job straight out of school was a pretty special thing. And so I moved across the country and started working in a small medical device company. And it was back in the day when you wanted to make a move, you actually answered an ad in the paper. So I'm aging myself a little bit.
Oh, good.
But I answered an ad in the LA Times after a couple of years and got really the position that started my entire career, which is at Baxter Healthcare. And from that time, I just did a series of progressions. I've spent 13 years in corporate there, did a little bit of venture investing in the medical device space, and then actually went on to go into some startup environments, all in the med device space, and giving me additional levels of both leadership as well as an opportunity to do professional marketing to physicians and their practices, but also then adding on the consumer component, which, as we know in this environment, is extremely important as we're all starting to advocate more for our own healthcare. And so it's been a journey of being able to expand my marketing skills, but to your point, also really hone in on leadership. And it's one of the things that I've enjoyed the most during my career is the ability to work not only in marketing, but I think the cool thing about marketing is that you get to work with all the other functions in the organization. And so I've done a lot of cross-functional team leadership as well. And the thing I've enjoyed the most, and I think has really been the thing that I've focused in on, both in my marketing journey as well as my leadership journey, is really connected leadership and really understanding what consumers and physicians want and what their language is and what's important to them, as well as on my own teams and in my own organization, making sure people are feeling seen and heard, and then making sure that whatever I do in my marketing work is actually a reflection of that so it speaks to them and they can relate.
That's wonderful. And Amy, you've been described as an adversity assassin and a catalyst for transformation. Can you share more about your approach to overcoming challenges, both personally and professionally, even?
Sure. So I'm going to take you back a few years, back to my childhood. I think that's where we all say it starts, right?
Yep.
Unfortunately for me, I suffered profound loss by the age of 10. My father, an uncle, and two of my grandparents died within about a year's period. And so at the age of 10 and a half or 11, I could plan a funeral from beginning to end, which is not necessarily the kind of core competency you want a 10-year-old to have. But as I went through that progression of dealing with grief and overcoming some of that, I actually formulated a system. And over the years, I've been using that consistently, both in my professional life and in my personal life, to overcome challenges. And I call it the SOAR system. So if you'd like, I can go into a few of those elements and tell you
Definitely.
how I feel like I awaken my adversity assassin, but how I feel like it can actually do that for everyone. So SOAR is an acronym. The S stands for stop, because anything that happens to us in our lives, if there's an issue, we automatically have some emotion, right?
Yep.
And if you think back when you were in preschool or kindergarten, you may remember those little emotion tags that were on the walls that said,
Yeah.
sad, happy, whatever. There's a
Hmm.
reason we have those there. And it's because emotions are actually very important and powerful. And I think as a society, we have a tendency to dampen those down and not really acknowledge them, and especially in the workplace.
For sure.
I'm not saying that work should become a therapeutic session. However, I think there is real merit in knowing when something happens, acknowledging, hey, I'm feeling whatever, sad, angry, anxious, whatever those things are, and making sure that we're really in touch with that. Because if we let emotions rule our actions, oftentimes we will take an action that doesn't serve us well. And so a lot of it is about really understanding whether it's a small comment that a colleague makes or something much bigger, like maybe COVID. We all have those reactions and those feelings. And I think acknowledging those and understanding those and saying, first, I'm going to start there, really understand and process what I'm feeling. Just give yourself a little time and then move on to the next thing. And the next thing is the O, which stands for objective. So the other thing I think happens a lot is we solve for the wrong problem because we do have all that emotion tied up. We start thinking, oh, I'm just going to go do this or I'm going to do that. And I think stepping back and saying, okay, what is the objective? What is the problem that I'm trying to solve? And what's my objective around that is vital. I'll give you a really good example. Kodak back in the day was really big with cameras and with film, right? And so they were like on the top of the food chain in terms of the prominent maker of cameras, and really were known for making memories. That was their brand. So they wanted to elevate that, and what they did was they went ahead and they made it easier for people to print pictures. The problem was it was right in the middle of when the digital era was starting, and what
Yeah.
people really wanted was a better way to share. And so they were solving for the wrong issue. Again, going back to what is your objective and how do you need to go about solving that so you're solving for the right problem, not the wrong problem. There's this saying, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And
Right.
so that's also a thing. Like the timing is important, making sure that you're doing the right thing at the right time. So that's the O. The A speaks to adaptability. And I like to use the example of maybe an older generation who
Sure.
has a certain pathway that they love to take, right? So this could be either how they put a strategic plan together or how they go to the other side of a busy city. We all know that we now have Waze and we have all these other Google Maps and other platforms that allow us to take the shortest path. I use Waze all the time because my goodness, I'm out here in California and a lot of things happen here with our traffic.
Yeah.
But if you deal with somebody who maybe just always has taken the back roads and doesn't want to be on the freeway or has a certain way that they like to go about things, I think oftentimes it's so stifling. And adaptability in life, I tell my kids this all the time. If something comes at you from the side that you didn't expect, the very best skill you could have is the ability to adapt and find new ways. I think COVID taught all of us that, right?
Yep.
And I was in a really interesting situation during COVID where we were actually training physicians in their hospitals. And of course, all the hospitals shut down. And so we had to try to figure out how do we shift and adapt so that we can still train those doctors and we can still keep things moving, but so that, it's a different platform and a different way of going about it than maybe we would have before. And I think sometimes when big challenges like that come up, that's when our creativity can soar the most. And we can really understand, hey, let's look at this from all different angles, try to assess and be creative about ways we can solve things and not fall back always to the ways that we've always done it. And that leads to the last letter of SOAR, which is R, and resilience. And I also think that's a skill that can be built over time. And it's all by virtue of learning from everything that we have to overcome, whether it's a small challenge in a communication situation, or it's a much bigger challenge where you have a business strategy or maybe even a marketing approach that didn't work. Making sure that you're not giving up and that you're actually saying, okay, what did I learn from this? How will I do it better the next time? Maya Angelou always said, when we know better, we do better. And I think that's a really important thing for us to think about, both in our personal lives and in our professional lives,
For
as
sure.
we go about things. So that's my SOAR method. I've used it, it's battle tested over and over. And I believe that if we really take time and go through those steps, we can all awaken the adversity assassin within us and become much more anti fragile, just in life in general, and be able to proceed through all the twists and turns more effectively.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of your SOAR method there and all, as a keynote speaker and leadership coach, Miss Amy, you've likely encountered various leadership styles. In your opinion, aside from what you just laid out with that you've just laid out with SOAR, what are some key traits that distinguish exceptional leaders from the rest? Just from your perspective and experiences.
For sure, yes. And I would like to just use an example that I think about all the time, and that is if we all think about our very favorite teacher we had, and I bet somebody can think at this very moment the name, the grade they were in, and why they liked that teacher. Most of the time, it's because that teacher had a few important attributes which I think are important to leadership: empathy, encouragement, and engagement. And so empathy is that ability to really actively listen to someone, not just hear what they're saying, but really engage with them, hear some of the feelings behind things, peel the onion back, understand what they're really saying, what's important to them, make them feel heard and understood, and even mirror back to them what they're saying and acknowledge that. So I think that's number one. We all want to feel that, right? We all want to feel like we're of value and that somebody is excited about what we have to offer, that we have insights, and that we're intelligent and able to help them solve a problem. The engagement part and empowerment, I think that's about, a lot of times, and I was fortunate early in my career to have a really amazing manager who believed in me and gave me opportunities that now looking back, I'm thinking that 23-year-old that I was had no business doing some of that. But he believed in me and he empowered me and he engaged with me in a way that allowed me to really stretch and grow. And I think in those cases, as long as you're communicating the boundaries, okay, these are the objectives, going back to objectives again, and here's the boundaries that we can play within and let the people be creative. You would be so surprised what people will come up with if you just give them the opportunity. So I think that empowerment engagement's important. And then just the ability to work alongside someone and not make someone feel alone. So, having their back, but also really encouraging them. And there are days where, as a manager, I rolled my sleeves up and said, okay, let's tackle this together. And not making the person feel like they can't do it, but making them more feel like, hey, I'm in this with you. Like we have a common goal here, and together we can figure this out. And so I think those are a few of the things that are really important, and they really reflect kind of the servant leadership type of model where you're really thinking about the other person, and really trying to serve their needs to make them the best they can be and optimize their performance versus thinking just, oh, I have this business objective that I need to hit. So I think that is important. And I think those things are the very things I also saw in those very favorite teachers that I had growing up.
That's definitely wonderful to hear. Now, just speaking on that, everything that you just laid out there, Miss Amy, you had a recent post on LinkedIn, which I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was centered around embracing change for optimal performance, and it looked like it resonated well with many. How do you help individuals and organizations navigate change effectively, especially in today's fast-paced and dynamic business environment, aside from what you've already have just laid out here?
Yeah. So one of the books, this is a very old book, but it really resonated with me, was the whole move, Who Moved My Cheese? And the whole idea behind that was that change is going to keep coming at us. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen every day that, I mean, I've had several times where I was on vacation once and I got a call that my boss and my boss's boss had just been let go from the company. And you kind of sit there and go, oh my gosh, I didn't expect this, right? Now, what am I going to do? Again, you kind of have that response of, oh, wow, I didn't expect this. I think the more we can get used to just knowing that, hey, things are going to happen, things are going to change, a lot is out of our control. That's probably the biggest thing is a lot of this is not about you. Like that's the
Yeah.
very first thing we all think about, right? What's in it for me? Or how does this affect me? Which is natural. It's human nature. But the reality is a lot of this stuff is out of our control. And if we try to control it or we let that emotion get too strong, it's really hard to navigate through. So I think taking a step back again, understanding that, not everything is going to be about us or impact us, to an immediate extreme. Giving time, not slow in action, but time to just sort of reflect and go, okay, let's see where we're at with the situation. And then again, figure out different ways or different conversations that maybe can be had during that time of change. I'm a big advocate for really marketing yourself. And I think in an organization, the more you can add value and the more that they can see you as a top contributor when change does happen, you're the people they're going to because they know you're adding value. You've got the connections, you have the network, you have the trust of people. And I think we should all aim to be as flexible as we can, be adaptable, and then be that person that adds that value so that when those organizations do go through flux and change, we're not somebody that is being affected by it, but we're actually part of the solution and part of the moving forward plan.
That's great. Thank you for providing those practical strategies and tools for your four-step sequences for overcoming both personal and professional challenges, as well as helping individuals apply these concepts into their daily lives. Now, Miss Amy, your experience spans across many industries, from cardiovascular startups to non-surgical weight loss companies. How do you adapt your coaching and consulting approach to meet the unique needs of each industry, respectively?
Sure. So I feel like coaching is a little bit like marketing in that, from a marketing perspective, if you have really good foundation and solid skills, you can apply that to a lot of different industries, which is actually what I've done in my career. It's always great because you learn a little bit something new and understand different nuances from place to place that you go naturally and market to market. But as it relates to leadership, I think it's very much the same, and coaching. It's about really understanding, again, where is the person? And I think now more than ever, we have five generations working in the workforce at this point. That's a novel thing that hasn't happened before. And we are all very different. In fact, I hear managers all the time complaining about, I don't really understand this person. I don't know where they're coming from. And so I think part of leadership and coaching is meeting the person where they're at and acknowledging that they need to be their authentic selves. I think one of the biggest mistakes we can make in business is trying to shove someone into a role or have them be something that they're just not. And I love focusing on strengths. I don't know if you're familiar with the Gallup Strength Finders, but that's always been a tool that I've loved because it didn't focus on the negatives of what we need to do better. It focused on I'm naturally, as a style, inclined to do these various things and act in these certain ways because that's just who I am as a person. And so I think from a coaching perspective, I start with, where are we at? Is there an issue or are you just trying to level up? And then after that, let's figure out what you're really great at. And when you're doing that, and we all know it, right? When you're doing what you're really good at, your heart sort of soars and you just feel alive and you're excited about it. Versus if you're in a role that maybe isn't fit for you or you're doing work that's not best suited to your style, then I think we have that kind of internal conflict. It's like, I don't really love this. This isn't, what my natural tendency is. And so I really try to coach people around those strengths. And then the other thing that I don't think we do a very good job of in business is really creating a path. I talk to a lot of young professionals now, and one of their big concerns is, I'm in this job, I'm not making a lot of money, cost of living's high, I can't even buy, a house where I live, and I don't know if I really want to work harder because I don't even know what it's going to take to get to the next level or what that could look like in time or even in compensation. I think that's really sad, because we spend
Yeah.
more time with our work colleagues and at work than we spend with anyone else in our lives. And the thought that people are day after day going into work without really being motivated or have an idea of where they could go and the value they could contribute, I think is really sad. So I also work with people to make sure that we have that plan in place and that they know, that they can get to different levels and achieve different skill sets and, uh, positions, but also working through that and understanding where they want to go, why they want to do that, and how we can best utilize the very best they have to offer up to the company and, making sure that they're optimizing their performance along the way based on those factors.
For sure. Now, you mentioned a lot of great things there, Miss Amy. Now, in regards to the younger generation of young professionals, and obviously the world is a lot different today than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and such. And I oftentimes think that we use a lot of old school or maybe archaic advice in the new age that we're living in now. But just to segue that, networking and relationship building seem to be crucial components of your work. And just provided everything that you just said and I've just said, how do you advise professionals, whether they're young professionals, mid-career professionals, or even professionals who may be older than you, as when it comes to cultivating meaningful connections and leveraging those said connections, leveraging them for personal and professional growth? How do you advise professionals to go cultivate in those regards?
So I think we are living in an age that gives us an opportunity to do networking in a bigger and better way than we ever have in the past. I can't believe how many people I have initiated a relationship with on LinkedIn who actually have gone on to help me because we connected on something, had a very short phone call, and then they said, "Oh my gosh, I think I could help you over here. I know this person that I could connect you with." So I would say definitely from a digital perspective, uh, lean into LinkedIn, make contacts, make them meaningful though too. Don't just hit connect and hope that a whole bunch of people will connect with you. Take
Yeah,
the time to do the search on maybe the kind of targeted people that you want to reach out to and understand and know more about. And it doesn't have to be long paragraphs. It can be very short. Hey, I see that you're a marketing executive. Looks like we have a lot in common. I'd love to connect. And I think you'd be surprised at how many people will actually respond and say, "Yeah, I'd love to have a quick chat." So I think that's number one. Number two, within your own company, I've always been a big advocate of finding a mentor, finding someone who is a different level than you, and really leaning in and understanding how you're perceived at work, what value they think you're bringing, what did they do to get to their level. Understanding politics in companies is often really, really important. And a lot of times those people can give insights into difficult conversations, difficult situations. And so I think having a mentor is key. And then I would also say there are a lot of associations and networking groups now that are very easy to access, some even virtually. And I think, the ability for us to connect with other people who maybe in our same profession, maybe it's marketing as an example for me, going out and really being around other people that are doing new and innovative things and understanding what they're doing, how they're doing it, how it might apply to what we do. I think that's invaluable. So I would definitely say, leverage the digital in company mentorship, networking with networking groups, and then if you have the opportunity, I found going to a master class is exceptional because you get with people who have a very strong passion toward elevating their performance or figuring out how to elevate their thinking. And when you're around that kind of group, it's a really special experience because you really start seeing what everybody's doing. You get this energy. And those relationships that you make in those types of classes too can be very vital to connecting you with other people and helping you as you proceed with whatever your initiative is.
for sure. And I do feel that LinkedIn is a very important tool. And I think we have to be very careful to not let LinkedIn become a glorified Facebook or Instagram or any other popular social media platform out there where more focused on the numbers, the quantity as opposed to a quality. But just to segue that, can you share a memorable success story or transformational moment from your coaching or consulting engagements? What lessons did you learn from that experience?
So one of the things that I've that's been really fun for me, and I think it's transformational for the person on the other side, is a lot of times I'll work with people and they're coming in with a lot of things that they've done. Maybe they're looking for a new job, and in this one's instance, I'm coaching someone who is looking for a new job. It happens to be overseas. It's a big change, and she has done a great job doing some of the core foundational things, But I've been helping her with when you're talking to the next new person that you're interviewing with, how do you articulate your personal brand? How do you stand out and make it different than the next 5 or 10 people that they're going to talk to based on what's unique about you and the strengths you bring? And it sounds really, oh, yeah, of course, that's what we all do. But I think if you can articulate something in a short, memorable piece, as an example, when you and I first started talking, you referenced the adversity assassin. So that's something that has sort of become a part of my personal brand. And people have a tendency to remember that. And so that's been something as I'm helping her really articulate that. And then also think about different ways. As an example, when you are either in your job or interviewing, where you can already start providing value and data and ways of thinking that help the person that you're talking to see, oh my gosh, she's already at that level, or I can already see her in this company. And so, really shaping those conversations, even down to some of the key phraseology and words, has been really impactful. And I think the most gratifying thing that for me is when we walk away from a situation, a conversation, and the other person says, oh my gosh, that was so helpful, you're looking at this from a different angle than I've been looking at it. And of course that's natural because we all get so, focused on us and what we've been thinking about and how we think about things. So probably the most gratifying thing for me and transformational is being able to bring a different point of view, leverage some of my experience, and really make that other person come alive with what the best of what they have to offer.
I agree with that completely wholeheartedly. Now, in today's digital age, how do you see the role of face to face events like conferences and workshops in fostering personal and professional development? And I say that because now, obviously, since 2020, especially, there's a mix of virtual, hybrid events, and in person conferences and such. But outside of LinkedIn in person, uh, how do you see the role of these in-person physical events fostering that can help in fostering in personal and professional development? And how would you advise those professionals who are in these spaces to make the most of these experiences?
Sure. So I think that nothing replaces in person communication. So I'm a big advocate. I'm a big extrovert. So, of course, I get energy from being around other people. And actually, being on Zoom a lot has been a little bit stifling for me. Having said that, it's also expanded my ability to connect with people I never would have been able to. So, my advice would be if you have something that is in person and you have the opportunity to go to it, even if at the beginning you're thinking, I don't know if it's going to be worth it. I had this a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I don't know. And I went and I was so glad I went because there's nothing like engaging with somebody in person. And I think you can build trust a lot quicker. And also, the key thing that I think in person meetings and networking offers us is the ability to see what's not being said. So, a lot of times, you're around someone, you can feel what they're like. And I think that's harder to communicate when you're on a Zoom or you're on, Teams meeting. I think a lot of the networking is harder that way just because you don't have that opportunity to kind of see if somebody's excited and engaged about what you're saying because you're, a little block that's one of many potentially on a screen. So I would just say anytime you have the opportunity to do that, shake a hand, share a drink, whatever it might be, I would engage. I would encourage everyone to be as much in person and be as present in person as possible.
I agree with that as well. Now, discussing more about, or just discussing in general about new emerging marketing trends, and would just love to hear your thoughts on them. What do you think of AI tools in marketing? And I always read on these things, obviously working in marketing, but I came across an article the other day, and it just talked about how AI tools are becoming more prevalent in marketing, aiding tasks like content creation and data analysis. And there's also a mention of Google's response to AI generated content and its impact on search rankings. But Miss Amy, overall, what are your thoughts and the future of AI tools in marketing in general?
So I think that as marketers, we all have to just accept AI is here to stay. And it may be a little bit intimidating or even scary at the beginning. But I think AI can help us in a lot of ways. I think there's nothing that replaces a final review and authentic editing of what like a chat GPT might give us, but it really does make us so much more efficient. I think we can learn from it. I think the thing that's fascinating is that it can learn from you. So if you put a lot of conversations or memos and things like that in it that you've done, it actually starts mirroring your communication style, which is pretty fascinating. And so I think back to this, it's in a way almost like having a personal assistant in your profession. That's the way I'd like to think about it. It's like, okay, I have this person or this capability, I should say, here that can augment what I'm doing and give me thought starters, and in some ways create content for me that I can then go and personalize and make more authentic to my actual style. But I think it's going to make us a lot more efficient if we use it correctly. I think the analytics piece is fascinating. I mean, it happens so fast. I can't even, some days I'm shocked at how quickly I'm getting information and data back. And I think if, as marketers, we don't accept it, we're going to get left behind because it is here. It's, making its way into a lot of different industries in a lot of different ways in a lot of different capacities. And so I think embracing that and figuring out how we can optimize and use it best is really the best path forward.
I agree with that. And you just mentioned about how it can almost serve it, meaning AI, can serve as a personal assistant, mimicking your style and such and your communication. I certainly use the tools as well. I sometimes even refer to my own GPT as Julie, as in my own personal assistant in these particular regards there. But just overall, when it comes to just content, now the focus on high quality content, I was reading an article about it was just emphasizing the importance of high quality content and standing out amidst a sea of low quality content, particularly due to the rise of AI generated content and such. I'm just curious to know your thoughts on this particular trend and how it might impact marketing strategies moving forward.
So I think content marketing has always been something all marketers strive to be great at. And it has changed over time. I think one of the things that I'm finding interesting now is that because of all of the electronic capabilities we have in society, we have very, very short attention spans. And so that's why a lot of YouTube shorts and very short messaging and clips are resonating with people because as a society we've become accustomed to instant, quick things. And if we don't have that, then it doesn't really catch our attention. And so I think from a content perspective, again, it goes back to objective. What are we trying to achieve with our communication? And then I think it's really about how do we get the most unique, differentiated, simple message out there that will resonate with our audience in a way where it's memorable and they want to act. And so I think chat GPT and AI and those sorts of capabilities can get you some of that. But I think ultimately, we as marketers, we have to know our audience. We have to know what we're trying to achieve and what the objective is and what the outcome, what does success look like? Because I think you can use AI as a tool, but I don't think it can be and replace true content that is targeted and effective for the end user, the target market you're going after. I think you really have to, again, be a part of that and just use it more as a tool.
I agree. And this article also talked about just the increasing popularity of short form video content, as well as the effectiveness and efficacy in capturing and holding viewers' attention, because we're in the midst of obviously TikTok for, well, at least it's popular reasons. I know there's a proposed ban on it right now as it relates to our federal government. We're kind of centering all of our content. I'm even seeing LinkedIn kind of bend to this curve too, where it's all about that quick short form type of messaging and such. So it is just fascinating to see that, and even just when it comes to just consuming other forms of media, folks today are more interested in binging, for instance, at least on their personal time, a docuseries or a 1 hour of 1 hour each episodes as opposed to a 2 hour movie, because we do want that bite-sized type of information to be or content to be fed to us. And just to kind of segue into this in regards to, we're just talking about TikTok, but there's a lot of influencing marketing going on. And there has been really for the last 10 years, give or take. But when it comes to nano and micro influencer marketing, I was recently just reading about, and I'm reading these for both empirical and statistical information as it relates to this conversation. But it discussed a growing preference for collaborating with small scale influencers due to their lower rates and higher engagement rates. What do you think of that, just in general?
So I think influencer marketing is very interesting. I will tell you that I've always been a little bit leery of doing a lot of that, mostly because I was concerned about the PR impact if something went sideways. I
Sure.
know a lot of celebrity, endorsements and also influencers, and I've had a lot of situations that I've known from other marketers where the person goes out and does something kind of crazy on a weekend and it starts to affect their brand. I mean, you can see that in Nike all over the place, right? So I can appreciate those are very high ticket people, and oftentimes they're so visible in the media that that can be problematic if they do something that's maybe off brand of what you're trying to do. I think the nano and the micro influencers are so interesting because I have a couple of Gen Z children, and they're all consumed with TikTok. And I was just actually listening to a podcast this morning about how 20 something girls in particular are buying tons of skincare because all these influencers are telling them that this is the latest thing since sliced bread, and they have multiple tubes of half used moisturizer at home. You don't need another one. It's just because you're being influenced. But it does show the power of what these short form, endorsements can look like. And so I think we just have to be careful as marketers because we have to remember in a lot of ways, I'm referencing TikTok at this point, a lot of those influencers are getting paid to use those products and tell you about them, which is very different than being a consumer who is going out and actually purchasing something. And so I think as long as we're clear on what's our objective of how we're going to use them, what do we actually want them to say? And is it believable? And if they had to pass the red face test, can they actually say, yeah, I believe in this, I trust this, I have used this? And I think it can be used effectively, but we have to be really careful. And I would say it's an arm of a marketing campaign, but I wouldn't rely too heavily. I think there's a lot of other things that have to be built foundationally before you get into influencer marketing and how to use that. Having said it, you can often use that type of marketing across multiple platforms and really optimize the use of it if it does generate the outcome that you want. And to your point, there are tons of analytics that will help us understand what does resonate with our target audience and what doesn't, and how to kind of shift that. So I'm saying that depending on your market, depending on your objective and your target, I think it can be very effective if used cautiously and with a clear purpose.
In talking about defining that objective and that purpose, partnership marketing, uh, just more brands are expected to partner with other companies in their industry to achieve mutual goals. Now, partnership marketing has always gone on, but as it relates to 2024 and 2025 and beyond, what do you think of partnership marketing as it stands today and how companies are going about it? What are your thoughts on that?
Again, I think it depends on the industry. One of my favorite partnership marketing examples was Uber and Spotify. That made total sense to me because you're in an Uber, you have the ability to connect Spotify, you have the music that you want, and it gave both of those high visibility brands the opportunity to leverage each other. So I think in those ways it makes a lot of sense. I think as we move forward, you may see more and more of that because we do have such uh, an ability to get immediate visibility through all of the digital platforms, whether it's from TV, radio, down to everything that's on the internet. And so I think the ability of brands to come together, again, I think you have to use if do two things make three, or do two things make five or 10? If they're making five or 10, it makes a lot of sense. I think you can also have the risk profile where if it's one and one equals, two, that might be a little bit something that you want to consider, because it may not be that the trade off there is worth it. But I think just in terms of leveraging the cost and the visibility, if done well and on strategy, I think it can be effective and is something that I think we will likely see more and more of.
Got it. And as far as kind of going back to user generated video content, it looks as though that it's capturing for certain more traction amongst consumers, even those that are more, I guess, authentic or organic, meaning it's not necessarily highly produced in some respects from a major company or brand, but is user generated video content something that resonates with your current approach as a marketer, Miss Amy, and such? So just curious to see how you feel about user generated content going forward. You think it's something where it's going to become more authentic just from the everyday Joe or Jane, or you think it's going to kind of cycle back to more of a traditional, more professionally video produced type of content from a major brand or company and such?
Sure. I think it depends on what kind of promotion the company wants to do. I think if it's something where they're really trying to establish a core brand and get a very consistent message out, I think the more professional, you know, highly curated type of video content is probably going to be where they would land. Having said that, I have seen so much impact from the more raw, authentic, short clip, somebody using their own phone to take a testimonial. I work with doctors, as I said, and even when they will just literally turn on their phone and be interviewing a patient as they're talking about the procedure they had, it's pretty interesting because it comes off as truly authentic. And I think that's one of the things that has always been a question of marketing is, oh, this is just marketing versus this is really authentically what is happening or what a person is experiencing based off this brand or product. So I think there's definitely merit in more of the authentic, raw, if you want to say that, type of footage, because I think it's more believable. And I think with the era of TikTok in particular, that's what we're all kind of starting to use as the new norm. We go to those things and we do start having a relationship with whoever's um, providing that content, and then all of a sudden we start really relating and believing. And I think for testimonials around any types of products, that's a very interesting way to go about it. Instead of having the traditional, okay, I'm going to ask you, 7 questions about this product, and you're going to answer. I think it's nice because it's refreshing and it's truly authentic, and I think it's here to stay. And we'll see more creative and unique ways of executing that as we move forward.
Now, going forward as well, there's something I was reading about, and it was phrased as selective social media marketing. Now, social media marketing has been on the rise exponentially and such, and has stayed around for the most part for the better part of the last few years, especially. But brands are shifting now towards prioritizing social media platforms that are most likely to help them reach their target audience effectively. Now, I was also was looking at another take from a AI expert saying that a lot of us are outgrowing a lot of our social media platforms, like the Instagrams or even Facebook, depending on who you are, what your demographics are, and such. But as far as with either the legacy social media companies or maybe there's something new out there on the rise, how do you see quote unquote selective social media marketing as an opportunity for us as marketers and such to adapt and innovate?
Yeah, I think selective social media marketing, I think, goes back to what's your product, who are you trying to serve and sell it to, and really getting clear on that target audience. The nice thing about these various platforms is you can really research who the audience is, how they're interacting with the platform, what's the most successful for content form to be putting out on there. So I think in a lot of ways, it's about really understanding your audience and who you're targeting. As an example, in my last role, I was looking at probably 65 and older. those folks are not generally on TikTok. They're more on Facebook. And so then I could really hone in on that demographic that I was targeting and really understand then, how the frequency with which they were interacting with it, how they were interacting, how long they were staying, and if they delved further, if they linked to the website, et cetera. So I think it's again, I see all of this as just another arm of marketing that we should all be very savvy about and understand and use in the best capable ways. But again, going back to what's your objective, who's your target audience, and what is the message you really want to try to convey, and what do you want them to do after they see it? So I think all those components will continue to be very important. And frankly, I think different platforms can serve different needs. It's just a matter of what that combined unit that I just spoke about, which one of those is best served.
Absolutely. And this based upon the extensive experience that it's clear that you have and have provided. You definitely have a robust background in leadership, marketing, and strategic planning across various industries, particularly within the healthcare sector, especially when it comes to leadership management, marketing strategy, product launch, positioning, business development and investment, public speaking and communication, and a great deal of adaptability and resilience and all of that. I would just like to ask Miss Amy, what motivates you? What inspires you just every day to keep on at this?
So at the heart of it, I think when we give the best of what we have to others and watch them get value out of it, it's what really creates fulfillment. And so for me, it's a matter of how can I help someone else? And I've been blessed to be in the healthcare field where I've literally seen and been able to talk to real patients who got our products and where it was truly life changing for them. And I don't think there's any better feeling than knowing that you've improved someone's life. And so I think whether it's being cheerful in the office in the morning and maybe somebody's, spilled their coffee on their way to work and their dog's sick or, whatever the situation is, you don't know what's going on in people's lives. And so I think giving our best selves to others and really being that ray of light and inspiration for me is what's really fulfilling and what gets me up in the morning and keeps me going. And just back to that teacher comment, every now and then I'll have an opportunity to go back and tell a teacher, wow, you had a significant impact on me. And here's what it was, this very moment I remember. And I've had a few people that I've managed or coached come back to me and reflect back to me some of those moments. And for me, there's nothing better than that. And I feel like it's worth keeping going and it's worth continuing to share the best of what I have.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for providing those gems for sure. And who are some of your role models of who inspires you, or professionally, personally? If you could just delve into some insight there.
Sure. So John Maxwell is one. I mean, he's just been incredible in terms of what he's provided on leadership and his insights and the ability to engage audiences in a way where they really bring something away and can take nuggets and improve their lives and do something different. So I think he's been inspirational from that perspective. I love Mel Robbins because she's so practical, and I love how she meets all of us every day with just gems and insights of little things we can do in our life that can actually make a pretty big difference. And I love how she always ends her podcast with, if, in case nobody told you today, I love you and I believe in you. And I think some days that's a lot of what we all need, especially these days. So I think she's amazing. And then I think, I really love athletics. And so I've been really inspired lately by the Kelseys because obviously they're amazing athletes, but also the emotion they show without any regard. They don't care. This is just who authentically they come through as. I think that's a pretty special. I want to applaud their parents because whatever they did it well. The fact that these two, big gentlemen who are clearly at the top of their sport can also show so much emotion through passion and just, I feel, truly authenticity. I think that's really neat and something we should all aspire toward. And then there's, the common people that we all know from the past, Martin Luther King Jr., just the fact that he, I think as a servant leader, my goodness, like talk about really putting somebody else before yourself and looking out and resonating and trying to really relate and make sure people are feeling, are seen and heard. He's a great example. So those are some of the people I have on my vision board where I always reflect and think about, okay, what attributes do these people have that I want to engage with myself, mirror, and give the best of what I have to others through those same kind of skills.
Gotcha. That's lovely. I love that. Who are some of your mentors and mentees that you could speak of that you're especially proud of, if you have any of those?
Okay, so I don't know if I can share their names,
Sure.
but
Nice.
I will throw out a couple of names. So I mentioned that I had answered an ad in the LA Times at one point to get a job, and my manager's name was Mike Nimamoto. He was at Baxter, and somehow he saw something in me, and I was so underqualified for the role he gave me. Not in intellect and in capability, but just I was young and didn't really know a lot about what was going on. And he really took me under his wing and was such a great mentor and manager by giving me clear objectives, making sure he was giving me feedback continually, both positive and constructive, really believing in me and giving me opportunities. He also was very good at promoting my work and not taking credit for it. And I think, all those things, he in particular really shaped my view of leadership and who I wanted to be as I progressed throughout my career because he was just such a thoughtful, and he was also a great marketer. He's just recently retired, but he had a fantastic long career. And I watched what he did every place he went. And without a doubt, every employer he worked for, he had people he managed or mentees that have come up and said, "Oh my gosh, you made such a difference." And so he's definitely one that I think I would shout out to. Another person that I would say is someone named Christiana. She was someone who I actually reported to me, but also I would call her a mentee. And she was just this bright, young, still is, bright, young, innovative mind. And she was doing a fabulous job for us. And one day she came and said, I think I want to do something different. And it was really different. And she was really scared. And I remember having this conversation with her and saying, my goodness, like you have so much capability, so much skill. You absolutely can do this. And so we had obviously a lot of conversations, but she went on to be extremely successful, became a CEO a couple of times with different companies, and continues to inspire in the Dallas area and has received multiple awards. And I think sometimes you just need that person to say, yeah, it's okay. Like, I'm okay if you leave this company because you've given us a lot of value, but I see that you have this other thing that is so important that you can offer the world. Go, like fly, soar. It's good. Believe in yourself. So I've really enjoyed both of those experiences. And I think, again, it comes down to people, right? It's how we cultivate relationships and what we mean to each other. And I think that nothing can replace that.
You're absolutely right about that. If you could have lunch with your younger self, it could be at any age when you're younger, what would you tell her? This as far as just to navigate life itself.
Oh, wow. Okay. So if I was having lunch with my younger self, I think I would say two main things. One is it's always going to work out. Stop being so anxious. Stop worrying. Stop. One of my favorite things that someone told me along in my career is don't borrow sorrow from tomorrow. And so I try to really live by that now. It's like there's so many things that can happen in the future. It's nice to have a plan, but just know that the plan will change for sure. And I think that would be the one thing. The other thing is, I would say imposter syndrome is real. A lot of people have it. You're going to be okay. Just do the work, trust yourself, trust the process, and trust that things are happening in your life at the right time for the right reason. And when things do come up, one of my favorite things to think of now is it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. How can I make this an opportunity and look at it a little differently? And I think if I could use those two things to navigate for the rest of my life, I'll have a lot less anxiety and probably live a little bit more contently and joyfully than maybe I would have in my earlier years.
Wonderful. Now, just all that you provide has just been amazing for sure. I mean, your diverse skill set and extensive experiences make you well equipped to provide leadership, strategic guidance, and innovative solutions to organizations and teams just across various industries. just a final point there for individuals interested in attending your speaking engagements or seeking coaching services. What advice would you give them to make the most of that experience?
So I think to use my coaching and leadership capabilities, if you're going to engage with me, I think the key thing is really understanding where you are and what you want. So we always start with the why. You know, why did you talk to me? What's important to you? What time frame? And what are you currently facing? Whether it's opportunities or challenges. And so I think just getting a little bit grounded in what your situation is and what you want, because ideally you're coming to me because you want to have growth or you want to overcome something. And I want to make sure I'm doing that for you. So I think just making sure that, you know, and obviously we have an introductory call to make sure there's a connection, because just like anyone that you work with, some people can be great, but they just may not be for you. And I think that's important both on the coaching side as well as the person who's being coached. So um, I would say those would be the big things, but I am very passionate about helping people. I love to see people grow and achieve new things. And so I have a lot of background, and I think I can help a lot of people, you know, with growing and becoming an even better version of themselves, both professionally as well as personally.
Tell folks, our audiences, how they can follow if they want to get in touch with you for everything that you have to provide.
Thank you. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can go to Amy at kaleidoscopestrategies.com, or you can visit my website at kaleidoscopestrategies.com.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Miss Amy. As we wrap up today's Clay's Council interview, I want to extend my sincerest gratitude to you today, Miss AmyLScott, for sharing your expertise and perspectives on the evolving landscape of marketing trends and everything regarding your background. Your insights surely will illuminate the path forward for all of us, I feel, offering valuable guidance on how to navigate the complexities of modern marketing and all. I encourage our audience to take these insights to heart and apply them in their own endeavors. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, stay curious and keep innovating.